Hello, and welcome to the Rite of String podcast. I'm Kevin Sluter.
And I'm Matt Moreno.
And we are bringing you a show about orchestra teachers,
for orchestra teachers,
and those aspiring to be orchestra teachers.
As teachers, we put in countless hours for our programs to be successful, but we also often find numerous leadership roles to help serve our professional community and support our colleagues. In this episode, we talked to Brian Coatney, an orchestra director from Plano, Texas, to discuss the various leadership opportunities and what they entail. He also talks with us about how he balances his responsibilities between campus, region, and state level organizations. And all this stuff's going to get cut out.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you want to cuss, as long as there's 2 seconds of silence before and after, we can pick it out right away.
I grew up in Arlington, Texas, and my father was an orchestra director at Lamar High School for, I think, 30 plus years, and started the cello when I was 5. They put me in lessons, and then played cello all the way through, still play cello, of course, and then in 7th grade, I got a kick to be a percussionist, so in 7th grade, I joined the band as a percussionist, and played percussion all the way through freshman year in college, and then I moved on from there. So, but yeah, I've always been part of a musical family, and orchestra directing, I guess you would say, is in my blood.
Yeah. And where all did you end up studying after high school?
After high school, went to Northwestern State University. It's in Louisiana, and got a bachelor's in music education there. And then I wanted to be at one point like a conductor, professional conductor. And then, so I went to James Madison University and got my master's degree with Dr. Robert McCashin in Masters of Music in Orchestral Conducting. And then I got a job in Houston. I realized that after I got my master's, I was like, the professional conducting world is not my cup of tea. So then I started pursuing a job in music education in Texas. So I got a job in Houston with Keith Markison at Klein High School. And so taught there for 4 years, and it was a dream job. I was assistant there for 4 years, and working with Keith was incredible. Everything I do, in addition to what I've learned from my family, my sister and my dad and my mom, is because of what he does.
Well, and as a lot of us know, you've held a lot of different positions just in higher capacities to help our orchestra community. What are all the positions that you have held beyond just being but being a head orchestra director?
Oh man, let's see. I've been an all-state organizer, so I organized for the All-State Philharmonic, and that was long time ago. I think it was maybe the first 2 or 3 years that I was teaching. Mm-hmm. And then I've served as organizers for the region orchestras as well. And then that's kind of how I've got into getting into some leadership positions and serving for TMEA and other capacities. And then I've served on some committees here and there when they asked me to. I can't recall all of those committees. Mm-hmm. And then when I got the job at Plano Senior High School, I think maybe the 2nd or 3rd year at Plano Senior High School, I became region chair for Region 25. Mm-hmm. And I actually took over for the previous region chair who he got a new job in a different region, and so I served as region chair for Region 25 for 3 years instead of just 2 years. And then so that was fun. And then we went, then we got rezoned to Region 24, and in Region 24 I serve as treasurer. I've served as vice president for a region vice president, and then most recently Vice President, Orchestra Division, TMEA. I think the official title is Vice President and Orchestra Chair for TMEA.
Are you also department chair?
Yes, department chair at Plano Senior High School.
Yeah. So, are you able to give us just a quick rundown of what maybe the priorities and responsibilities would be for each one? Like, well, let's just start with department chair.
Chair. Communicate, attend monthly meetings at Plano Senior High School with all of the rest of the department chairs, and then disseminate that information to the department, make sure that our department is running smoothly and that there's no issues within the department, and just kind of keeping an eye on everybody and making sure everybody's okay.
Yeah.
But primarily it's just getting information and delivering that information to the department,
Mm-hmm.
and representing our department at the department meetings.
Yeah. How long have you been department chair?
Oh, 3 I want to say 3 years.
Yeah.
I think 3 years. Yeah.
And then how about region chair? What would you say in a nutshell?
Region chair is it's a tough job, but it's a rewarding job because of all the people you get to meet, and then all the people you get to work with. But yeah, you're just organizing the region meetings in the fall and the spring, and then you're responsible for hiring the clinicians that will be working at the clinics and the concerts, putting together the auditions, putting the committees together to select the audition music on the region side of things, and then just being a manager of sorts of the region to make sure that all of the events are running smoothly. And then in regards to the state, you have to attend a summer workshop that's part of the TOTA convention, but TMEA is in charge of it. But you go to a training where you learn how to use the computer software program, and then also we have a region chair luncheon to where you just talk about the things that are happening across the state, and your region's representative of what's happening in your region, and making sure that your region is being represented in those meetings. And if the region has any issues, you're the voice of the region. Mm-hmm. And then, so we have the summer workshop, and then you also need to attend in February at the TMEA convention. You attend a region chair luncheon where you do the same thing. You just talk about any issues that are happening across the state. So it's a big job, but yeah, it's definitely well worth it.
Yeah.
So in these positions, you're working exclusively with adults, pretty much, when you take a leadership position like that. While most listeners, for this podcast at least, understand the dynamics of working with children day in and day out, what's your perspective on how to communicate effectively and professionally with cohorts of all types?
Yeah, I think the most important thing that it just doesn't happen enough with people is you just have to listen. You just listen, and you be empathetic to people's situations. And being in the leadership positions, you have a lot of people that come at you and are upset about something because they feel like they've been wronged, or their children have been wronged, and you have to. It's so easy to get defensive about that stuff, but
imagine when you put that much time and work into something, you want to like defend what you
absolutely and and sometimes it's just unfortunately sometimes students get penalized because of adult errors, and so I think that's another part of it. Working with the adults is what I've learned is I have to look at the situation and decide what's best for the student, even though it was the adult error. And so that's always the basis of our decisions when it comes to any of those events, is what's best for the student. Was it the student that messed up, or was it the adult? And so we're always going to favor on the side of the student. But going back to the question, sorry, we kind of got off track there. I think it's just listening to the adult, and just like students, just listening to them, hearing their side of the story, their viewpoint, why they feel the way that they do, and then being empathetic to their situation, and then trying to figure out a compromise or solution that will side in the favor of everybody.
Yeah.
So with all of the planning and logistics that are involved with any of these positions, have there ever been times when things do not go as planned?
I, other than timing of things, sometimes I try to. What's the right word? Anal retentive when it comes to planning things, because I try to figure out every scenario that could possibly go wrong and put safeguards in place to make sure that those things that could go wrong don't go wrong. So I don't know that I've experienced something that went horribly, drastically wrong, other than maybe I didn't time something out the way I didn't anticipate for the time that it would take. And so if there was a delay in it, or if it led to long days, like I'm thinking of all-state recording, some of the regions experienced really long days with the all-state recording because of the tracks that I chose. Yeah. And then also the judging of the all-state recordings. I didn't anticipate judges taking as much time as they did in between tracks. And so there were some long days in regards to judging. So those are the only two examples, but I can't think of anything that was like on an actual audition that was just craziness. Yeah. And
I meant to also ask, what have the responsibilities looked like for TMEA vice president?
It's region chair on steroids. It's pretty much the same thing. I would say as a region chair, except it's just going on statewide. So you're in charge of getting the clinicians for the all-state organization, so the All-State Symphony, the Philharmonic, and I'm proud to say our new Sinfonietta Orchestra, which is our full orchestra. So, but what's really cool about the vice president versus like a region chair is Texas is so well known for our amazing music education. And so like you contact these top-notch, high-level clinicians that have been all across the world and have conducted professionally. And most of the time they say yes, and they're really honored to be our clinicians because they know the caliber of music education that's happening in Texas. So that's been really neat to reach out to these famous people, if you will, and expecting just rejection, and then they come back and they say, yes, I would love to. This is a huge honor. So that's really cool to be the representative of TMEA to reach out to these people. But yeah, so you have to hire the clinicians. You're the voice of the orchestra division for TMEA at all of the executive board meetings. We have 4 executive board meetings throughout the year. And then you're in charge of the biggest part of the job that I was surprised by, but I shouldn't have been surprised by, was that, and the most important part of the job is picking the clinics that are presented at TMEA.
Yeah.
And so like this year we had over 90 clinics that were proposed. And so you go through and you have to read all 90 clinics, the description of the 90 clinics, and decide which ones you're going to accept and which ones you're not going to accept. And you have to look at, is it for middle school? Is it for high school? Is it instrument specific? Is it pedagogy? Is it management skills? And all of these factors. And so my first year as VP, I selected the clinics, and it was fine. But this year I made a bit more of an effort to really because that's probably the part of the clinic that impacts the people the most are the clinics. And so I think to me that is the most important part of the job. But I think most people think the most important part of the VP is to select the clinicians for the orchestras and select the literature with those clinicians. But it's actually, in my mind, picking those clinics.
Yeah. About how many clinics is it?
There ends up being 33 total out of those 90. So you have to select 33, and then 4 of those clinics though are already designated for like guitar. So if you take guitar out of the equation for just like string education, typical traditional string education, then it would be 29 clinics.
Yeah. And so do you have any guidelines you have to go off of in terms of there must be this many middle school clinics? Or
No, it's just balance. You just try to find a good, nice, solid balance. You also want to include mariachi clinics in there as well to make sure that they're covered and they're getting that. So other than that, it's just, going back to the role of the VP, picking the all-state etudes, picking the all-state excerpts, working with the region chairs. I think I was a little surprised of how much interaction I was going to have with the region chairs on a regular basis, as opposed to just in my mind it was going to be maybe a few questions here and there, and then seeing them at the summer convention and the TMEA convention. But it's been a lot of communication with various region chairs throughout the entire state, and talking about their issues and that they're having in their regions and problem solving. So that's been interesting to go through. And I think the other part of it is having a vision for the state and the orchestra division, and trying to get that vision, what's the right word, to happen, I guess. So like my vision was creating, instead of having a string orchestra, an all-state string orchestra, I thought it was time for our division to have a third full orchestra. And it took 2 years, but we finally got that accomplished. And then, just deciding on where we need to head as an orchestra division.
Yeah, I can imagine in this position specifically, you've probably learned quite a bit about music in Texas and all the orchestra programs in a more intimate way.
Absolutely.
Do you feel that your predecessor left, I guess, a revolving list of things to keep on improving? And is that something that happened since it's only a 2-year term?
Yeah, I think that's the hard part, especially if, and I'm not saying this is a case, but it's, if your vision or your view is one thing and that your predecessor's vision view is a different thing, then you kind of have to switch that around. And so whoever follows me, if they don't agree with where I was taking the orchestra division, then they'll switch it around. It'll be harder for them to do that because things have been set in motion, but they can do that. And that's the job of the VP. I got lost track of thought. What were we talking about? But my predecessor, she did a great job. And before her, they really set to establish that our recording process was uniform. When we record our all-state auditions, that process was uniform throughout the entire state of Texas. And they made sure to hold that. And that has improved significantly in the last 4 years. I think it is now time for our state to start looking at the way that we hold our high school region auditions, and we are more uniform across the state in regards to that. I think that's the next step that we need to move into.
So how's everything going with writing those monthly articles for the Southwestern?
It's great right now because I'm done.
You're all done.
I'm done. Yeah, I wrote my last article. They're always due 2 months in advance, and they so it's always kind of weird because you write it and then you'll get a copy of it about a month out, and then you'll see the published version when it actually comes out. So and every time I read the published version, it's like, oh gosh, that was like 4 months ago. It feels like a year ago that you wrote it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of crazy to realize that, but it's been a challenge. You have to write 8 a year is the 2-year term. So I wrote a total of 16 articles.
And you pick your own topics.
And you have to pick your own topics. And it used to be, those articles used to be pretty much business related. It was like, what's happening in the division. Here's some things that you need to keep in mind. Remember to turn in your audition entries and all that stuff. And I'm not sure when it happened, but TMEA has really gone to making those articles more what is beneficial to all of the teachers in the classroom. So, and they want to stay away from the business side of things as much as you can. So yeah, that was a challenge. And I just had a Word document that every time I talked to somebody or I read an article or I watched a video or anything like that, I was like, that'd be a good article. And then I would just jot that down in that Word document. And then, so I had a pretty long running list, but that list has now been depleted. I was scrounging there at the end. But it was challenging to say the least, writing those articles every month, but very beneficial. And I would say that's probably helped me as a teacher the most, is because it really makes you think about all of these aspects that you write about, and then is that something that I'm going to institute in my classroom, or is it something that I already do? And how can I be better on that thing that I already do? So yeah. It's been good. I'm glad I don't have to write anymore.
I bet.
So obviously, yeah, you're still teaching full time while doing all of this stuff. You just mentioned how those articles kind of help you be a better teacher, but like overall, do you think that these various leadership positions that you've taken on have helped you become a better teacher in the classroom, or are they just kind of like a separate world to what you do?
Better teacher in the aspect of I have a more global vision about string education and education in general. I mean, overall, I think before I took all of these positions, the only thing that I knew was the way that we did things at Klein High School, the way that we do things at Plano Senior High School. And serving in these various roles and having conversations with other people and other directors about how they do things, because you have to have those conversations to figure out how to run these auditions and how to plan various events. And so having a more global view about how people do things, and then I've been able to take those views or those ideas, those thoughts, and institute it in my program to make me a better teacher. And the best conversations I have are with the clinicians, having those conversations with the conductors who have been all around the world and seen all of these different things, and just to hear them talk and their viewpoints has changed my teaching. And I recall a conversation I had with Jung Ho Pak, who did the symphony, All-State Symphony last year, and we were talking about burnout. And I was kind of at that point a little bit. I was a little bit burnt out by that point, and just having that conversation with him about burnout and his passion about music and his love for music totally changed me to where I was fired up again and I was ready to go teach. And so, I think, just the global view of being in these positions.
Have you been able to pass any of the leadership things you've learned onto any of your student leaders? Yes.
What I've learned especially in the vice president role that I'm currently serving, is you have to learn to delegate and then you let it go. Because if you try to micromanage everything, then why did you delegate it in the first place? So trust, delegate, and then just let it go and trust that it's going to happen and it's going to be okay. What I used to do with our student leaders would be, I would give them the responsibility, and then when I noticed that they weren't doing it, like a social event, I would say, okay, you're going to be in charge of planning this social event, and then they wouldn't be doing it, so then I would take over. I would say, okay, well, if you're not going to do it, then I'm going to do it. And then I'd plan that social event. And then what I've learned then is I don't have time to do that now. So I tell my student leaders, you're in charge and I'm not going to save you. So if you don't plan the social event, then it's not going to happen. Or if it does happen and it doesn't go the way that I think it should, I just let it go. And it's on the students. It's the students' social event, so let them do it how they want to do it. And as long as they're not hurting each other or they're not doing anything appropriate, then they get to do whatever they want to do and how they want to do it.
So if it's not being planned well, do you actually just pull it and do you tell them, okay, this is...
No, there's been a couple times that, one in particular that I can remember, I just let them go through it. I mean, it was bad. It was really bad, but that afterwards I talked to the officer and I said, so how did you think that went? And he said, I don't think they had a very good time. And I asked him why, and he's like, well, it wasn't very organized. I said, that's a good observation. And then the next one that he planned was much better. So yeah, it was good.
So when it comes to teaching day to day, I can imagine that on top of all those extra hours of these roles really, can present conflict with just balance of time. How have you managed to get through your day, completing tasks as VP or region chair or department chair and still make time for the kids and do your day job?
Yeah, I'm good at compartmentalizing. Just ask my wife. So I will, I'll go into the day thinking, okay, I'm a list maker too. So I have everything that I need to accomplish with Plano Senior, that I need to accomplish with TMEA or whatever leadership positions I'm serving in. And then kind of throughout the day, I'll try to figure out which part I need to accomplish when. But first and foremost for me is my job comes first, and like the leadership positions that I serve in, those you typically would, if I couldn't get to it during the day because I had to deal with Plano Senior things or job related things, then it would just have to happen at night or late in the afternoon or early in the morning or just outside of the normal work day that I would work. I mean, that's a sacrifice that you have to make if you're going to serve in those leadership positions, but I would just make time to do that. And the hardest part of all that with the TMEA VP position was there were some days that there was an issue in the state, didn't even happen in our region or just in the state, that we had to get to at that very moment. And so I think that luckily I have an assistant, but that's the only time that I can think of where that leadership position took me out of the classroom because I had to deal with it at that moment. But I worked hard the last 2 years to make sure that my serving in that leadership role didn't affect the program and didn't affect my teaching. And I can't say that I was 100% successful in that, but tried.
Yeah.
So clearly you didn't just try one leadership position and go, nope, this is not for me, and then never do them again. You didn't even do two of them and then say, I think this is enough. You've continued to do different leadership positions. What's made it worthwhile to continue pursuing these types of things?
For me, the relationships that I've built, knowing and all the people that I've met and have friendships with through, and I would have never met these people. I would have never established and built these relationships had I not been in that leadership position. And I think that's the biggest payoff for me. And the reason that I kept doing it is I loved meeting all of the people. And then also, at one point, I think I still am. I try not to be, but I was a complainer. I was one of those people that we'd be at a region function or something like that, and I would be with that person that was talking and saying, well, this could be this, and this could be this could be better, this could be, why are we not doing it this way? And at one point, I was complaining to my dad, and my dad looked at me and said, well, you just need to be in charge. If you stop complaining and be in charge, and then you won't have these issues. I said, okay, well, there we go. So that's when I started trying to run for the various leadership positions. And so knowing that instead of just complaining and not doing anything about it, knowing that I'm acting on those the thoughts and the ideas that I have about how to make things better for students and for teachers, and following through with that, and is the biggest payoff, I think. And to know that I'm making a difference, hopefully, across either in a region or across the state. It's just making a difference and doing something about it, rather than just talking about it.
Yeah, just curious, did you do any leadership positions growing up in high school or college?
Oh yeah, I was. I was section leader. I ran for president in high school orchestra, but I did not get it.
Did you get a consolation position or anything?
I can't remember.
Sometimes
I can't remember. But the college, I was a leader in the fraternity that I was in, and then masters, there wasn't very much opportunity if I remember right, but. Yeah, I've always kind of stepped up. I like being in control, I guess, so to speak, of how events are run and just making a difference, yeah. So I've always held some type of leadership position.
Yeah.
Well, so I've not served in any of those types of leadership positions. Might at some point, might not, but I imagine serving the community in this higher capacity in our profession can probably be kind of overwhelming, trying to figure out where to start. Do you have any advice for people that are wanting to get into that but don't really know what to do from there?
Yeah, start small. If in your region, volunteer to organize an orchestra if your region has that capacity, or serve as whatever you can serve, or just go up to the region chair and say, hey, what can I do to help? How can I help? What's something you need to be done, that needs to be done, that I can do to help you out? And then with that, you can establish and develop a relationship with that region chair. And then you'll also, in those various roles, you'll meet other directors and you'll talk to those directors. And then you kind of just work your way through that system and then become a region chair. Same thing. If you're a region chair, really get involved with the state at those region chair luncheons and at the summer workshop training. Talk to the vice president of TMEA and every orchestra director in the all of those region chairs. Talk to them and establish some relationships there. And then just keep working your way until you have served in all the positions you want to serve in.
So the moral of the story is complain until you get into the position.
There you go. Yeah, if you find yourself sitting there going, man, this could be done so much better, or I have this great idea and I'd really like to see it in place, then put yourself in a position to make that happen. And the way you do that is you talk to people and you develop relationships. And you talk to the right people.
Yeah. Cool.
Well, we'll send everybody your way then.
Yeah.
We hope you enjoyed our conversation with Brian Coatney. The featured educational work at the end of this episode is Water on Mars by Kevin Sluter. You can find it at luxmusic.com.
If you have any questions or suggestions for the show, shoot us an email at rightofstring@gmail.com.
Also, if you haven't already, please subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts and join us for our next episode.
See you next time. Thanks for joining us.
Bye.